This video is Theater 191, The World of the Importance of Being Earnest, and I'm your instructor, Dr. Christiana Moldrum-Harkulich. Well, you've read The Importance of Being Earnest. Now let's talk a little bit more about the world of the play. The world of the play is more than just the setting, although the setting is very important. It's set in the writer's present, which is 1895 London, England, which is a very long time ago. So we need to know a lot about the world of that play and the world of London, England in 1895. Now, this isn't just any part of London, England. It's specifically the upper class world, where you have Victorian English values, women need to be married, and marriages should be made of respectable people with respectable families. You also have a very distinctive country versus city dynamic between the different acts in the world of the importance of being earnest. So it's not just a singular ballroom in a city in London in 1895. We also get the country aesthetic as well, where we meet Gwendolen and we learn all about Bunburying and who Ernest really is. So those are important aspects to the world of the play in The Importance of Being Earnest. We want to know more about these Victorian values. What does it mean to be a good person in Victorian England? What does it mean to be a bad person in Victorian England? Is Algernon a bad person because he stands up his aunt for sandwich lunches once a week? Probably not. We don't get that sense from the world of the play. So what makes people good and what makes people bad is also pretty essential into what are the dynamics in the world of this play. It's also important because this play is a comedy, and comedy has different rules than drama, which is what Fences, our first play, and Trifles to a certain extent were. So let's talk about comedy and drama because they really do make a big impact on the world of the play, especially if everything is on purpose. If we take that assumption that the writer did everything on purpose, we can learn a lot just from the way things are set up. So a drama, a composition in verse or prose intended to portray life of a character, to tell a story usually involving conflicts and emotions through action and dialogue, and typically designed for theatrical performance. The ending is not necessarily happy. That's the definition from Merriam-Webster. Drama is not tragedy necessarily, although tragedy can be drama. It's that squares and rectangles old analogy. So dramas are generally about serious subject matter and portrayed in a serious manner. We are supposed to care about who these people are and the things that they are going through. There might be some happy endings, but it's not entirely happy. We know a tragedy is a tragedy because most people are dead at the end of it. That's a good rule of thumb. If half of the cast is dead at the end of the play, you're probably in a tragedy or a very funny satire, which we'll get to in a moment. A comedy, however, which is what The Importance of Being Earnest is a type of dramatic work that is amusing and satirical in its tone, mostly having a cheerful ending. Often characters are married at the end. If you look at Shakespeare's plays as our definitions of comedy and tragedy, if everybody is dead at the end, it's a tragedy. If everybody's married at the end, it's a comedy. It doesn't necessarily have to be funny all the time. Today, which is 400 years past Shakespeare, if we're thinking about what makes a comedy should be taking something in a lighter tone. So the motif, to finish reading off this definition, the motif of this dramatic work is triumph over unpleasant circumstances by creating comic effects, resulting in a happy or successful conclusion. Generally speaking, we can tell what a play is by the end of it. You don't necessarily know at the beginning because dramas and tragedies can have comedic moments, but as a whole, if we look at the play, we'll know if it's a comedy or a tragedy based on how it ends. And here's a little bit more about comedy as a style or genre in theater, which is important to the world of The Importance of Being Earnest, is that comedy comes from expectations being met in unexpected ways. This is essential to what happens in The Importance of Being Earnest, and it's all a pun about the word earnest, which means to be very sincere, which is funny because no one is being sincere in this play. And so we have this expectation being met in unexpected ways throughout. That's part of the comedy. It's also a comedy of manners, So we have a lot of ideas of how people are supposed to react, which are based in these Victorian cultural ideals, which we see on television quite a lot. If you watch Downton Abbey, you probably have a sense of the world. So not only is it a play in words, it's also a play in actions and how what people are supposed to be doing is met in unexpected ways. So in order for something to be funny or comedic, the audience needs to understand the rules of the world and then see how they are being met unusually. And this is true of all kinds of comedy, not just social commentaries, not just romantic comedies in which the romance is made in an unexpected way. It's true of physical comedy, where the body does something that we weren't expecting, or pratfalls, where people fall down when we expected them to keep walking. All of these expectations are met in funny or strange ways, including in satires. So I mentioned earlier, if everyone is dead at the end, it's probably a tragedy, or it could be a satire. So if you were going to kill off everybody at the end of a play, you might bring them all back to life to satirize tragedy as a format. And that's where satire gets in. Satire is a very nuanced form of comedy, but it's still essentially about expectations being met in unexpected ways. So finally, to prepare for this week's rat, you'll need to read the play, thinking about the world of the play and the characters in it. Read the short reading, E.F.'s Visit to a Small Planet. Watch these videos, and your questions will be on comprehension of the play's content regarding the world of the play, character, and comedy.